big day today. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and probably the only chance that I get to do what I'm getting ready to go do. Folks, we are getting ready to go do an interview with an individual who, their story, I guarantee, is probably, I can't even say probably, their story is going to be the craziest that you have ever heard. And the interesting thing about this person is a long time ago, February of 2017, I actually did a video about this individual. This guy's name is Ryan Fredrick. And in that video, it was titled, "A Drug Raid Gone Horribly Wrong." And the reason why this drug raid would end up going horribly wrong is because of the fact that a detective would end up losing their life in the process of this. In fact, it would be Ryan Fredrick who shot that detective. Now, when this took place, Ryan Fredrick was actually facing the death penalty, but he would only end up getting sentenced to, I think, a little more than 10 years. Well, and you're probably wondering to yourself, like, how in the hell could that possibly happen? Folks, we're going to be hearing all about that today because, again, we're getting ready to go meet with this guy, a guy that I've never met before. But back during the time when I was getting in all sorts of trouble in and out of the jail, I remember exactly this dude's story being all over the news. And in fact, during his trial, it was the entire police department that was there in his trial showing support for the fallen officer. There were also jailhouse snitches that were involved in this situation. There was a lot of craziness that took place during this man's story and his case, and we're going to be hearing all about that today. The reason why this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity as well, and the only opportunity that we really are going to get to do this video, is because of the fact that when Ryan got released from prison, he actually moved far away out of the state because he feared for his safety. I also want to throw this in here as well real quick. This is in no way intended to glorify what happened with this officer losing his life. This was a very tragic situation, and it's only an opportunity to share a man's story that has otherwise not been shared, other than the one video that I did about this guy, and also a book that was written about drug raids gone wrong or police raids gone wrong, where Ryan's story was also featured in that. Ryan came home from prison, saw the video that I put together about him. Me and him would end up getting in contact. He would reach out to me and he would tell me that in the video that I made, you know, I'm the only one who got his story even close to right. In terms of what was published about him in the book, he said that was completely wrong. But regardless, today we're getting ready to hear it from Ryan himself as he shares with us, you know, his story about the fact that he was facing the death penalty because he killed a cop and would only end up getting sentenced to a little more than 10 years. So without question, in my own personal opinion, this is going to be by far the craziest story that I guarantee you guys are ever going to hear. Ryan, it's a pleasure to get a chance to meet you. It's crazy to think that this is the first time that I'm meeting you, but yet I've heard so much about your story, and I want to say that it's a real honor to get the opportunity to be able to share this story, as tragic as it really is.
Well, it's nice to meet you, and I'm kind of an open book, so whatever you want to ask, go ahead.
I guess I want to start from the beginning, Ryan, and obviously I want you to share, you know, what exactly took place that would lead to you facing the death penalty. But before we go to that, we're going to bounce around just a little bit. You know, it was about 2 years ago in February of 2017, I made a video. It was called "A Drug Raid Gone Horribly Wrong." It was about your story. And when you got released from prison, that was in
2016, end of 2016.
You get released in 2016, the end of that, and you come home, you see this video that I put together about you and your story. You know, what were your thoughts seeing that, and what were your thoughts on the video?
It was kind of a little surreal because I had never really watched YouTube, or social media was new to me. And then to see myself on the video, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is. So I try to keep an open mind because I've heard my story told bits and pieces so far off from how it actually happened that I wasn't expecting you to get it right. But I said, you know what, I'm going to watch this. And then so I watched it, and I was actually pretty impressed with the details that you got, not knowing how you came up with them, because again, I never knew what kind of stuff was being broadcasted. I was only told.
Right.
I was only told. So I had an idea, but I didn't really know what to extent. So then when I get out, curiosity, I just start looking, and some things are just so off. And you hit on a couple key points that I was pretty impressed with, especially when it came to some of the jailhouse informants. Before this happened, I never got in trouble every day of my life. I've never seen it inside of a courtroom other than for minor traffic infraction. But I would watch TV and on the news, and they'd say, well, this jailhouse informant testified against this guy in jail. And I would think, well, how would he know this stuff if he didn't tell him? I was really green to the fact of the different things that could actually happen beyond the scene. So when it actually happened to me, I was blown away. I was just like, my jaw dropped. But you hit on a couple key points about that I was just like, he knows the inside and outside, beyond what the average person sitting at home watching TV was. So I was really impressed with that. And you were pretty darn accurate on almost everything that happened.
Well, I greatly appreciate you saying that. There were some things that I would just learn literally as we were setting up for this video that I didn't have correct. And these were, I guess, myths or misconceptions and things that people were just saying about your case that weren't true. We're going to talk about those things. But I do want to key in on the fact that, people may be wondering, well, how did Joe know so much about your case? And as I was telling you, prior to us even beginning filming, when your case was in the news, I was in that jail. So I was already familiar with the fact that, what dudes could do in the jail, especially in terms of the jailhouse snitching. But I was watching your case unfold while I was locked up in that same jail. And it was just crazy that we never met each other. We never knew each other. I had only known you through what I was seeing, either on the news or I was hearing being spread through the grapevine in prison or in the jail about your story. But Ryan, I do want to share with people or ask you to share with people, what exactly happened. As you mentioned, you were a dude who had never been in trouble before, and you went from never being in trouble to facing the death penalty. So, tell us a little bit about the story of what led up to you getting incarcerated.
Let's see. Take back probably 8 months, 6-8 months prior to the situation that had occurred on January 17th.
What year was this?
This was January 17th, 2009 is the actual day it happened. I had, I smoked weed recreational. I'd go to work, do my job, I'd come home, smoke a little bit, that'd be it. I wasn't ever, engaged in selling stuff. That just wasn't my lifestyle. I didn't want to get involved in that. I had tinkered around, grown a little bit, trying to see, could I just grow my own weed and not even deal with going to somebody to get it. That really didn't work out so well because I was engaged with this girl, and that was not something she approved of at all.
You growing the weed or smoking?
Yeah. I had maybe like 8 plants or whatever. So on a Tuesday before that Thursday that everything happened, I had a few tiny little plants or whatever and a banana tree. And my place was broken into. So I go in there and they take like 6 out of 8 plants and leave 2. And of course the banana tree they leave. So I start thinking, I'm like, you know what, this is just, I can't have this crap. No.
Did you know who it was who had done this? Did you have an idea?
Not at the time, but I figured it out. Back then, caller ID was pretty popular. So I looked on my phone, caller ID, and a number had showed up multiple times. And it was the guy that had dated the girl that I was with, sister, months prior, that I hadn't heard from in, gosh, it was 8 months or a year or whatever. So it rang multiple times apparently because it's that's what the caller ID said. So I called it back and I said, hey, did you come by my house today? And he hung up the phone. And so I was like, look, somebody said they saw you at my house today. And then he hung up again and never picked back up. So I kind of felt like it was him. And I was just, because I grew up in South Norfolk, so I know what people's game is. And most of the time, people gonna call if they're gonna break into somebody's house that they know. They're not gonna try to do that when they're there. He had been to my house before, so he knew that I did have a pistol.
You were licensed in?
Yeah. Like I legally went to a gun store, did a background check, and bought, gun range lessons and all that. So I went to the gun range, but I never took my gun outside the house. It was just something I had for protection. And then I'm thinking, okay, so if I'm gonna go break in somebody's house, I'm gonna call beforehand. So out of the blue that was the only person that called that day. So I kind of felt like that was probably him. Wasn't 100% sure, but all signs are pointing that way. So I take the rest of those things, man, I bag them up, I throw them in the trash.
The plants.
Yeah, I'm like, this ain't worth it. I'm kind of a little uneasy. And, living in South Norfolk, there was right up the road this 2-year-old girl. They break in their house, shoot her. I don't know if you ever remember that story while you were locked up. There was a kid named Sean Ward. Well, they had broke in, tried to rob the place, and he shot right through the mom's hand and went right in the girl's head, little kid. So I'm like, man, this is just not really the best neighborhood. So I'm like, my house just got broken into. This kid's getting shot. I'm kind of thinking about moving, and so I'm working at that time for Coca-Cola. I got to be at the plant between 4:30 and 5 in the morning. So I typically go to bed around 8 o'clock, between 8 and 9. So I go to bed, and my dogs start barking strangely.
At what time was this?
I don't know at this time.
Okay.
Like I go to sleep around 8 o'clock. So I know it's in January, it's dark outside at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, I'm in bed. I kind of wake up and I hear them, and I hear a knock on the door, and it's strange the way they're barking. I'm kind of paranoid. So I'm like, don't nobody just knock like that in the middle of the night.
I want to jump in real quick too, Ryan, and forgive me for cutting you off,
No,
but
good.
I want to share some things that I heard, and you correct me if they're wrong.
Okay.
Because I think when I shared your story the first time, I think I had said something along the lines of the music was loud in your house. You didn't hear what was going
No, I
on.
didn't have
You were
the music.
asleep, like you said.
Yeah, I was asleep. Did not have music going on.
Had you heard that before? Did anybody else say anything about music, or did I just pull that out of thin air?
You're the only one that had said that.
Okay.
But the way you said it was kind of funny. It did kind of make me laugh. But no, I was asleep, for the night. It wasn't like I just dozed off for a nap listening to music. I was in bed under the covers going to bed. So I get up and I hear a big, it's like a wood cracking sound, like a tree just broke. So I grab my pistol out of the drawer on the nightstand next to me, and I head down the hallway. And as I head down the hallway,
You're scared to death, right?
yeah, because my dogs are going ballistic, and I know something had just happened inside this house. because it was loud. The wood just shattered. So as I come around the corner, I see a gaping hole in the bottom of my door, and somebody's crawling through it. And
Your front door of your home.
Front door. And my lights are out. I got a one little dim light, like a little lamp light. And so all I see is a person coming through this door is in a black, I saw Quicksilver writing on the jacket, and I could see that it was a pair of blue jeans that I believe, because I could barely see through that door, but he was half in, reaching for the deadbolt to unlock it. And so that's when I took the safety off and fired one shot. I was actually shooting for his hand, but it went into his shoulder, apparently, come to find out later.
And I want to jump in again real quick, because when I shared your story, I said something that you've told me you've probably heard before as well, and that was the fact that you shot through the front door.
No. That's absolutely insane in my opinion. And for everybody that had something kind of crazy to say about me shooting through a front door, I don't blame you for saying that, because if I just go shooting through front doors, that's kind of insane. Why would I even do that? Like, I don't know why anyone would just shoot through their front door. But no, I shot at someone coming through my front door.
And I also said that, you shot this individual in the head, and that's not true either. This went into his shoulder.
It actually went through his shoulder all the way through, and unfortunately hit a main artery that, led to the outcome.
So from the moment that you fire this gun and you shoot this individual in the shoulder, not knowing at the time that it was a detective, correct?
Correct. That it ended up being a undercover detective.
What happens after that?
After I shoot him, I seen his arm come out real quickly, and somebody grabs him. All I see was blue jeans, and grabs him and pulls him back out that hole. And then I'm like panic, heart's pumping 1,000 beats a minute, and I'm looking for my phone, my cordless phone. Of course, at this time, I cannot find my phone, so I'm going back and forth. And then as I hid back to the living room, it's kind of strange, but I won't even go into this. Something told me to go back in the other way, and as I kind of moved this way, then I moved that way, and then I went again, the drywall just exploded in my face.
So they were shooting back.
I got somebody from somewhere, and I don't know where, shot, and that drywall just exploded. So then I'm really panicked. I'm like,
you're in a shootout in your house.
I don't know what is going on and where it's going from. I just know that I gotta find this phone. I still can't find the phone, and I'm scared to go back into the living room because of what had just happened. And I finally go and I look out the window, hoping at this point, because my neighbors are kind of, actively looking what's going on around the neighborhood. So I'm like, they have had to hear this. And so I see a police car, and I'm like, thank God. So I put my gun down, and I'm just in pajamas, no shoes, no nothing. So I open the door, and they're like, please come out with your hands up. So I put my hands up, and it was weird because I just see like all these guns pointed at me, and I'm kind of thinking to myself real quick, maybe they think I'm the person that just broke in this house and don't know exactly. So I get down on the ground, they cuff me, and they asked me, they were like, do you know what just happened? And I'm like, not exactly, because I'm like really lost to what's going on. And then they were like, you just killed a police officer. And I'm like, what? And then they just pummeled me with elbows into the back of the head. And that was pretty bad. Because I told a friend of mine, I said, I don't know what hurt worse, the elbows to the back of the head or my face hitting up against the concrete. He just kept telling me, stop resisting. And eventually they dragged me to another yard. And I do see them working on somebody. They eventually put me in the back of a cop car.
You know, one thing that I definitely want to say is, you know, you're very fortunate you didn't get killed in this situation.
Absolutely. Like, I believe, and I don't know if anybody's religious or not, but, you know, God bless my mom, but I feel like she pulled me, like something told me to move. And if I would have stayed there, it literally was like that close to my face. It just exploded. I'd have been dead. And it was a headshot. So, you know, I was lucky I wasn't killed in the house, and I'm lucky I wasn't killed coming out of the house. Looking on it back now, the reason I think that I wasn't killed coming out of the house, well, my neighbors were pretty out there. They were kind of standing outside, and they were yelling at them to get back inside, but I don't know if that had anything to do with it or what, but I'm very lucky. Yeah.
You get put in the back of the cop car. Let's talk about what happens when you get to jail. What was your initial experience like getting into the jail? I can imagine interrogation takes place. You know, what was the staff like? You know, to walk us through what happened when you first got locked up.
Interrogation was kind of like I see in TV shows and movies. You had one bad guy that was kind of hard and one guy that wanted to be my friend. And they wanted me to talk about this, that, and the third. And all I keep doing, I keep throwing up. I'm like sick over this. They're telling me as a cop that I just killed, and I'm just throwing up, vomiting left and right. And
yeah, I think let's talk about that too. You know, what was the reaction? What were your thoughts when you finally realized, or when you did realize, you know, what really took place, that you killed a police officer?
Yeah, I was just, I was beside myself because I'm just thinking, how did this just happen? This all just happened so fast. I'm like asleep, and then, you know, an hour later from being asleep, I'm in the jail being charged with the murder of a police officer, and I'm just like, what just happened?
And that was capital murder.
At the time, it was the charge came across as capital murder of a police officer,
which is probably the most severe murder charge. It is the most severe.
It's the most severe of any charge they have. It carries two sentences: life or death. That's the two with it. And I believe that the actual I take that back. I was first charged with first-degree murder. They eventually upped it to capital murder. And that was something that my lawyer, his assistant, the one that I ended up having the most dealings with, which was a guy named Eric Corslin, he's a great attorney. He said that in itself told him a lot, that it was first-degree murder, because they're saying that in his eyes it was saying, okay, they're saying you premeditated it. And if you're premeditating the killing of a police officer, then it should be capital murder. So maybe they are acknowledging that you didn't know it was a police officer. That in itself kind of was like, that stood out to him for whatever reason.
You go through interrogation. I can imagine that's a nightmare. You talk about the fact that you're throwing up all over the place. You know, what was jail like for you? You'd never been locked up before, and here you are getting locked up for the worst charge you can possibly get locked up for.
Jail was horrible. They take me to a cell, give me a red jumpsuit, and they tell me to stay in there for 20, you get 1 hour out a day. And I'm like, okay. So, I mean, I didn't know no better, and I didn't get to talk to nobody, but, you know, you go get in the shower, and of course I take a shower like I did at home. I've never been in jail, so I stepped right in the bottom of the shower.
No shower shoes.
Did not have a thought cross my mind about maybe I should wear these. Yeah. So it was actually a deputy that I had went to school with. He was like, "Don't shower barefooted in there." He was like, "You're gonna lose your foot." And I was like, okay. I didn't know, you know, I just thought it was a public shower, like maybe at a gym. But no, that's, looking back now, that is like something nobody should ever do. Do not go barefooted in that shower. Food was horrible. Didn't eat for a couple weeks. I got down to like, I think it was like 102 pounds. I didn't eat meat at that time. And everything that they served had meat on it. They didn't have a vegetarian tray. If they did, they would not acknowledge it. So the girl I was seeing finally came to see me, and she just started crying. She was like, "You look so bad." I lost so much weight, and so then I finally started eating, and I got put on some antidepressant medicine. And in 1 year, I went from 102 pounds to 287.
287 pounds?
287 pounds.
And this was during the time that you were first getting locked up?
Yeah. And within 1 year, I went from 102 to 287. Yeah, it was a lot of weight to gain. There wasn't nothing to do, man, and I was depressed. So, like I told you, I knew some of the deputies that worked there, and so if they had an extra tray, they, you know, they knew me as a person. They were like, "This stays between us, but I'm with you. I know you ain't mean to do that."
So that's really shocking to hear that, you know, you were actually getting support and sympathy from the staff, whereas, you know, I would imagine that, you know, they're trying to beat you up every chance that they can.
Well, you know, that was with the ones that I knew. There were some pretty nasty ones too. And like I said, I didn't really know what to expect. I just knew that they put me in handcuffs that first night and beat the crap out of me. And, you know, they do a cell search. So I'd been in there like a week, and they come busting up in the middle of the morning. And I'm like, they're about to beat me up again. They're about to jump me. And they didn't jump me. But there was a couple of them in there that were real jerks. They were real jerks. They would say some pretty nasty stuff. But overall, I'd say the majority of them, they were pretty good to me. And even when I left, I remember a sergeant, or it might have been a lieutenant, telling me, he said, "Look, man, you're about to leave the prison, and I've seen prison change people. Don't let prison change you, because you're a good dude that got put in a bad situation, and I'd have done the same myself." So,
you know, I mean, that's just crazy to hear, and I mean, it's the truth.
They were fair.
Yeah.
The majority.
You know, I want to talk about what your mentality was and what your mind state was, and how you even found any kind of hope to carry on when you find out, you know, you're facing the death penalty. And tell us how you found that out.
So when I had my hour out, I used to call this girl that I was seeing, and she would kind of relay the news to me, and I always told her, don't sugarcoat anything. I do not want nothing sugarcoated. So she told me, they're upping your charge to capital murder, and they're talking about going for the death penalty. And I'll never forget the conversation. I said, life don't sound that bad.
A life sentence.
It didn't sound that bad at that moment. And that's, looking back, it still kind of throws me off to when you can say that a life sentence in prison doesn't sound that bad, because I wasn't ready to die. I was like 28 years old, maybe 29 at that time. And no, I'm not ready to die. I was sitting in a cell for 23 hours a day doing much of nothing, but I still was like, I can make this work. You know, as a human being, it doesn't matter what kind of situation you get put in, unless you're just not able to cope. But I think the majority of human beings can adapt to the situation you're put in, and those that adapt well can find the most minute thing to look forward to, whether it be that Sunday chicken dinner tray, or the 1 hour that you get to use that phone or take a shower. There's not much you can control when you're locked up, but you can control your hygiene. You can control, your effort to stay in contact with the people that you care about, and then you start to value those things in a way you've never thought was possible. Like, I remember the first time that I got lotion.
While locked up?
Yeah, I was like, oh my God. So nice to be able to actually put some lotion on my skin. The state soap will dry you out. So you start finding little things to find joy in, and that's what I did. And I wasn't ready to go, so I was like, I wanted to talk to my lawyer about it, and so I guess the lawyers talked, and he said he wasn't going to seek the death penalty because I only fired one time.
The prosecutor wasn't going to seek the death penalty?
Yeah, he said it would have been different if I would have just unloaded my gun, but he said he fired one time, and he's never been in trouble. So, go for life.
Well, let's fast forward a little bit, and let's talk about what the trial was like. Because, I remember seeing this on the news, and you had the entire police department there against you, and, what was it like to walk into that courtroom and know that pretty much everybody in there was hoping the worst for you? Or was against you?
I didn't know, because I did not have access to media coverage. So I didn't know who was in there and who wasn't in there. I didn't know much other than what my lawyer was telling me, and the people that I stayed in constant contact were telling me. And at that point, they were told not to even attend the trial at that point because of being subpoenaed for a witness. I knew that they didn't like me. I knew that they, quite frankly, hated me, because from what the story that was starting to unravel slowly, and I'm figuring out what their story is slowly, it becomes something that almost, it's hard to really explain, because I've become, in a way, defiant of the police department. I've never felt that way. I had friends that worked in the police department. My mother worked for the sheriff's department. I always looked at them as good, honest, faithful people that always did the right thing. It was never a cop that would do wrong. So,
but you're seeing the story change.
Yes, so I'm starting to see that they're saying that I shot through a door. An officer actually says that I was standing there looking through the window as they came up to the house. They said that I had over 100 marijuana plants, that I was a big-time drug dealer. And then it started coming out. The jailhouse snitches started coming in, and they were knowing things that no one would know. I never seen these people in my life.
Because you were being held in...
Yeah, they had me in solitary confinement. I'm not allowed to see people. I get no contact with people other than the person that brings my tray to the door and mail. A little before trial comes out, this is before the actual trial starts, my lawyer comes to me and asks me, who is this person? Who is this person? And goes down a list of, I believe it was 7. And I'm like, I don't know. He's like, never had a conversation with this person. I'm like, no, I don't know who they are. So he starts researching, and he's like, they're going to try to use jailhouse informants against you. And I'm like, well, let them. I don't have nothing to hide. I've never talked to these people. I've never seen them. So they start coming in, and I'm not sure which one came first, but they start telling the jury what I could see out my bedroom window, and my jaw drops. I'm like, what? They know the layout of my house, what's in the backyard, and there ain't no way that they could know that stuff if they haven't been coached by either a detective or a lawyer, or somebody on that side. So at that point, when we go into trial, I'm already skeptical.
They were saying even more stuff from what I heard.
They were saying some bad stuff.
Like you had more bullets. Was that true?
They said that one of them went around saying that I went around by a nickname of something. I can't remember what it was. They said that I wanted to go out in a blaze of glory or this and that. And it was just like, and another one came in there, said that I came back from trial mocking the wife of the officer. And that's just some really, for one, it's just damaging to my defense. But on a whole nother level, that's just some low ball shit to do. And the stuff that they were saying was portraying me as somebody that I'm not. And I would never make fun of somebody that just went through that. That's horrible. Somebody killed my mom. I know how it feels. And I wanted that person, I wanted him to do the rest of his life in prison. So I know how it feels.
Hold on, I want to reiterate that. You said somebody killed your mother?
Yes. Long story. It didn't happen in the same fashion, but they prescribed my mother and 3 other people a combination of medicines that were toxic when taken. And within like a few months of each other, all of them died. And so they put a case against him and sent him off to prison.
So you know what it's like to...
Yeah, I know to be on the other side of somebody just took your loved one away from you. So I empathize with this person. The hardest part of that whole trial was seeing his child on the seats, because I sat in her shoes. I ain't gonna ever say anything bad about that family. They can hate me, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them, because as a child, you only know what you're told. I've been painted as this terrible person that took her dad. Regardless of what she believes or doesn't believe or what the truth is, at the end of the day, I'm still the guy that took her dad, and that is a terrible feeling to have. I know that feeling coming from her. Crazy thing is it took this for me to, because I dealt with my mom's death and never got over it, and had a lot of animosity to the dude, but put me in the other shoes, and that's when I found forgiveness, and it took a big weight off my shoulders. I hope one day that they can find forgiveness, because if you don't, then it's just a burden you carry with them. And I'm not that dude that those people painted me out to be, although I don't expect them to believe anything else.
So the jailhouse snitches come to court against you. This was actually big in the news. They had articles coming out about, jailhouse testimony from snitches and things like that. I can remember that taking place. But you're going through this trial. Let's talk about what happens when you get found guilty and then getting the sentence that you received, because what you received was certainly nothing in comparison to what you were first facing.
Right. Going into it, I never thought I was going to prison. It never crossed my mind. I absolutely knew that I was going home. And I said, because the truth is what it is. And my lawyer was like, look, and my lawyer's 30 years, and he's a prominent lawyer in this area.
Yeah.
he said, so the prosecution asked to have the trial moved to another city because they felt that they were getting an unfair chance to prosecute me because there was beginning to become a shift in opinion that a lot of people would have reacted the same way. So my lawyer was like, we're keeping this trial here. You're not going to get found guilty here. He was like, at best, you're going to get manslaughter. And he was like, by the time you get manslaughter, they sentence you by your guidelines, you're going to come home. So I was facing the first-degree murder, and they, it all came to a head, and they told me to stand up, and they were like, with the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant not guilty with a charge of, because they charged me with first-degree murder, but they made it to where I was also facing every single lesser charge.
What about the capital murder? What happened with that?
They actually ended up indicting me. So with the capital murder, I don't exactly remember, but that ended up not going through. So it was first degree, second degree murder that I faced. And then on each of those, they were like, not guilty, not guilty. So then I just thought they were going to keep on going down the line, not guilty, not guilty. But then they stopped on the manslaughter, on the voluntary manslaughter, and was like, we found them guilty. Then they also charged me with manufacturing marijuana with the intent to distribute. And that didn't stand. They charged me with the use of a firearm and the commission of a felony, which was kind of strange. I was found not guilty of the firearm charge also. So I had first-time possession of marijuana and in the voluntary manslaughter. Went back in for about 15 minutes, came back out, and they said that they recommended 10 years for the manslaughter, and that was that. Then I got formally sentenced a couple months later, and it wasn't but like a couple weeks, and I was off.
You get sentenced to 10 years in prison. You thought that you were going home. The police force probably hoped that you were getting life. So everybody's feeling just crazy about this situation, but ultimately you're the one that's got to, deal with what comes next, and that's those 10 years. What's going through your mind thinking about spending the next 10 years of your life in prison?
It sucked. It did suck. Nothing enjoyable about that. But again, I had to make the best of the situation that I was in. And, so what I do, I'll go find a job. Go find a job in prison and start working. And I'll start saving money and getting things that I need. And then you just start learning how prison is. And of course, I was up to 287 pounds. My goal was to lose that by the time I came home. So I got a little routine just like everybody does, and did it and took it day by day and quit looking at, oh man, I got this many years left. It does nobody no good to look at the whole picture. You ain't got nothing but what's right there in front of you. And if you start looking past a week or two out, it's just going to wear at you mentally.
You were a person who didn't know anything about serving time, but it definitely sounds like you learned quite a bit, especially in terms of how to deal with the time.
And I was lucky because, and I told you this before, it's not something that I like, but it better be, especially in prison, it's better to be liked than not liked. My charge was, I guess, pretty popular amongst people in prison, and the case in itself. So they, welcomed me with open arms, like, we like this guy.
Did gangs approach you?
They did, and anything I needed, they would take care of. I wasn't gonna have to wait in line forever and ever to use the phone. They never tried to do anything towards me, or even one time somebody that I knew that they were gonna get him, and I was like, man. So I went straight to the top guy, and I was like, look, you told me if I ever needed anything, to let you know. Don't let them mess this kid up. And they didn't. And I was shocked. So I was lucky. It's not something that you want to be liked for, but in prison, it's better to be liked than not liked. And because if certain groups want to plot against you, they will. I was amongst some good dudes. I tried not to look at their charges. I don't care what they did. I just dealt with them, who you are as a person. And at the same time, I know in the back of my head, never let your trust level go but so far. Because, you know, everybody's got a story. You got to pick and choose and filter through what you believe. But, you know, I grew up in an area where if you're just blind to everything, you're going to get ran over. So when I go into the prison, I look at it the same way. I might not have never been in trouble, but I had a whole lot of friends that I grew up with that had. So, and I mean, I grew up in situations where you just can't be stupid. So, I mean, treat people with respect, find your own thing, never try to be somebody you're not, because I don't believe that people really like that. And just do your time day by day. And I didn't start counting time down until I got to like a year and a half.
You get through the time that you have to serve. You do your 10 years. You came home about a year almost exactly after I was released. I got released in October of 2015. You get released in October of 2016.
Yes.
And you've been home now for a little over 3 years.
Right.
You know, what's life been like for you since getting released?
It was a shock when I first got out. I'd never seen a smartphone. It blew my mind on the capabilities. I'd never seen a camera in a vehicle, maps. I'll never forget the first time I went and got a fast food. I never imagined that a damn Big Mac would cost, I think it was like $8.95 or something like that. They told me $8.95. I said, are you out of your mind? Things had changed. But I felt like, you know, I was successful before going into prison. I was going to come out successful. And that was something that I actually had to come to terms with. Because I worked for Coca-Cola. I had managed hotels, really nice hotels. And I couldn't get those jobs. I applied for like probably 20 jobs. I'd get called back. Everything would go good during the interview. Then we'd talk about the felony. And I wouldn't say, I just got out of prison for the killing of a police officer. I told him straight up, I had voluntary manslaughter. Somebody broke in my home, and I shot him, and unfortunately he passed. And I did time for my voluntary manslaughter. I never told him who it was because it's just not something that you want to add to it.
Right. It
just sounds horrible. But I never got called back. And then somebody got me a job at a golf course. And that was my first job. And I sure beat 27 or 45 cents an hour, whatever you're making in prison. But it wasn't money to live off of. But my sister, no matter what, she had my back. She never made me feel like this is not gonna do it. I'm not trying hard enough. Even though I'm trying hard, she feels bad for me. So I went on a date with a girl I had absolutely no interest in. And I met a guy there with his wife. They owned a plumbing company. And he asked me what brought me there, because I don't live in Virginia anymore. I just felt like it might be best to get a fresh start. And he gave me a chance. And I told him, I guarantee you'll never regret it.
Did you know anything about plumbing?
Not a thing. I knew how to set a toilet. That was it. And he gave me a chance. And I went home, I bought books, I researched plumbing, and moved my way right on all the way up to the top. To second guy, in charge. And Eventually, I ended up going to another plumbing company just because that one, it was limiting my growth. And now I'm with a really good plumbing company that I like working for, and I've grown tremendously at what I do. Not saying that I won't move back here, because it's where my family is, it's where my friends are. I'm here now, and I do miss it. I'm in a much warmer climate, and believe it or not, I do miss this cold weather. So.
You know, Ryan, your story is absolutely as crazy as it gets. I don't think there's anything that could be any more crazy than what you've gone through. And to see where you are now, I mean, that's pretty remarkable as well. The fact that you went through this traumatic ordeal that could absolutely break a person and could just be the end. I mean, as it could have been for you as well. But to go through what you went through and to be where you are right now, I mean, that's just as remarkable and just as crazy as what you've gone through.
Well, thank you.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to share this story. And, I know that we probably won't get a chance to do a follow-up. And if we do, it's not going to be for a while because of the fact that, you have moved away. But again, I'm grateful to get a chance to hear the story from you, the guy that went through this, but also to see that even with everything that you went through, look at where you are right now. As we wrap this up, I want to ask you, is there anything that you would like to share with everybody? Any kind of parting words? You've said a lot of really powerful stuff throughout this.
On the spot, it's hard to think, but there are a lot of people that have been through situations. Every situation's not the same, but everybody's got a story. Everybody you run into has a story. Some may turn your head a little more than others, but at the end of the day, just give people a fair chance. People coming out into situations where you keep being told no, don't give up. No matter what you go through, don't give up. You can always find that little bit of positive or that little bit of hope. Just find that little thing to look forward to, and you can keep going. And just keep striving to what you want to be. I didn't know what I wanted to be, and a lot of us don't. I'm sure you would never have thought you're going to be doing what you're doing. Most of us don't know what we're going to end up doing, but just keep faith that you're going to get there, and give people chances. You did a good job at telling my story. The first time you did it, you didn't do it with any bias, because you felt like I deserved a chance to have it told pretty fairly. And I appreciate everybody that has been supportive and open-minded to me, through that journey and now, because the journey now is much more important than it was then. So, that's pretty much it. If anybody knows a good plumbing company, give me a call, because I might want to come back.